Welcome back to the Football Fitness Federation podcast. This is episode 350, and I'm delighted to welcome back onto the podcast Graeme Henderson. Graeme, how's things?
Yeah, good, Ben. I can't believe it's 350. You've done some number of recordings over the years, and we are just saying there off camera, it's been 5 years since I last spoke to you, so I can't believe where the times went. It's certainly flown by.
Well, as you know, and a lot of the listeners will know, especially in football, 5 years or 5 seasons are literally the blink of an eye, aren't they? So, yeah, we can understand where they've gone.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. A few more grey hairs, but apart from that, it's seasons roll into one.
Yeah, that's it, mate. That's it. We've got loads to cover in the episode. And you obviously mentioned you were on the podcast before. That was episode 97. So people can go and listen back to that. But I want to start it in the same way because it's always good to hear about you and your background, where you've been. So can you give us a little bit of a journey on the clubs you've been at, the roles you've been in, and bring us up to what you're doing at the minute?
Yeah, well, okay, I need to start off by saying I've been very fortunate to have been involved in football for the period of time I have. This is now going to be season number 14 coming up. So it feels probably a lot longer than that. But worked at various clubs here in Scotland, Partick Thistle, Dundee United. Done quite a bit of work with the Scottish FA in the background during that period. Then at the time I spoke to you last, Ben, I'd went from Greenock Morton to Falkirk and had quite a long period at Falkirk, 6 seasons in total, where I think in this industry it's very unusual to have that length of time at one club. And you know, maybe that was just feeling at home there. Maybe it was the fact that it was close to home and perfect for personal life, etc. But there was challenges at that club and challenges that, towards the end of my time there, we overcame and we were pretty successful. We went on to have an invincible season, which is certainly something that will never leave me. It'll live long in my memory. There's not many clubs that have achieved that within whatever level of the game people are working at. And then moved on to work in the Scottish Premiership last season. So it's been an exciting time. It's been a time where having went from a period of stability to then moving clubs and something that in the background of been continuing to do the work I have with the Scottish FA and what we're on to talk about today in terms of UEFA fitness licenses and hopefully some exciting developments for fitness coaches, whatever level of the game they're working at, male game, female game, youth game, and kind of try to provide some information as to how these courses have came about and why Scottish FA and UEFA think that they are important and what the game's going to look like moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. I know there's a lot of conversations in there that goes on between coaches around regulations and these coaches, these courses and where to sort of direct coaches to the right courses for the roles that they want to be in. What was the initial conversations that led to the creation of the courses?
So it's probably a little bit of a reflection of my own journey. And last time on the podcast, we spoke about that kind of maybe need to understand the game or that need to have some coaching principles. And as a young practitioner, I was very kind of forthright in terms of, okay, we have to have a sports science or a fitness principles, we have to have that understanding, but I need to be aware of the game as well. And, I went and did my coaching qualifications, UEFA B license, UEFA A license, because I think we need that blend. So it's something I always had a passion for. And within my work for the Scottish FA, I kind of pestered them a bit and saying that we should be looking at this area and making sure that fitness coaches are able to be on the grass and are able to coach, because you'll know from experience what's the most important time for us. It's on the grass, isn't it? It's working with players, it's developing them from a physical standpoint. Now you take that and you then have to pass that information on to managers, to coaches, to goalkeeping coaches, whoever it may be, and it's relationships with players as well. So there's a lot of skills we have that probably we don't learn on university degrees or we don't learn going through, whether it be basis accreditation, UKSCA, which are all fantastic qualifications in their own right. But I think it's important that there is something within this field that we're balancing probably the art with the science. And as I've already mentioned, that's where there was a lot of conversations I had trying to really open up this space, and probably things aligned really, really well not too long after we last spoke. So that was around about 2020. In 2021, UEFA started to bring nations together. Obviously, that was the kind of end of the COVID period, and people were still very much online, and the world was a different place then. But we were fortunate enough to be invited out to a UEFA Share event. Took place in Israel, in Tel Aviv. And UEFA have a group called the Football for Fitness Group, advisory group. And within that, you have people like Paul Balsam, Stacey Emmons, who have obviously great experience within the game. And they're keen to try and push and try and steer this idea of a qualification for fitness coaches in order to make sure that they are competent within the game and they have that balance between kind of sports science principles and also coaching principles as well. And Chris Barnes, who I'm not sure if you've had him on
Yeah,
previously.
Chris has been
You
on a
have, yeah.
long time ago, but yeah, he's been on.
Yep. So Chris Barnes is another member of that UEFA advisory group. So we started off with some meetings, discussions between national associations, and it really was just a period of reflection of, okay, within Scotland, where are we at? What does Israel do? What does Belgium do? I'm trying to think of other nations, Poland, Italy, Portugal, all these different associations, because again, I don't know, you probably can tell me better, but the different fitness coaches you've had, there's people from obviously different countries, different philosophies, different ideas, and it's really just trying to maybe ensure some level of consistency amongst that kind of cohort where a British fitness coach, what happens if they move to Portugal, or a Portuguese fitness coach, what happens if they move to Germany, or so on and so on. So that was probably the starting point, that kind of early 2021 period where they started to get a bit of traction and a bit of movement across the national associations and UEFA for, okay, what do we want from a fitness coach and how are we going to try and take this forward?
And was that like the common challenges that coaches were bringing up, that they had the sort of education side in terms of, like you said, the degrees, maybe the masters, the UKSCA, the bases, but then it was the understanding of the football side that was the big area that needed to be explored. And I know that's something we talked about before, wasn't it? That was the important bit for people stepping into football to truly understand.
I think it's something that we've probably all seen. I think it's something that we understand that training time's limited. We don't have 24 hours a day where we can work with and coach players on the pitch, or we can have meetings with members of staff. So, you look at a number of studies that are out there in terms of communication between MDTs and that importance and clarity of message, and it's trying to get everybody on the same page and that universal football language and that understanding. And it's something that I've always believed in, and it's something that does come across very well in terms of the framework of these UEFA fitness licenses, is that integrated approach and that ability to make coaching staff aware of what we want to achieve from a physical point of view, but also to pose these questions to coaching staff. Well, what style of play do we have? Is it a high press, or are we going to sit in a low block? What do you expect from your wide players? What do you expect from your striker, etc.? How is that going to change what we need to train for within a normal session, or a match day -4, or a match day -1, or whatever it may be? So it's that idea of a joined up approach. It's that idea of being able to communicate, because I think historically the fitness coach role has been seen as, okay, there's a warm up guy, or there's a guy that, you know what, we'll do some running today. So Ben, go and take the players for 10 minutes whilst we set up, or if they've not worked hard enough, we're way beyond that now. The links that we have, the information we have, live data, understanding, context of the game, some of the excellent work that Paul Bradley's done well, it's not just high speed running, it's high speed running and overlap. It's high speed running in terms of pressing, it's high speed running for trying to exploit space, whatever it may be. We're far better than that in terms of the knowledge we've got. So having that ability to speak that same language and feel part of that footballing department, I think is crucial for us and also for the members of staff as well.
The same conversation comes up so many times on the podcast, and that is around like collaboration, this sort of cohesive approach between technical staff, fitness staff, medical staff. And I think it's really important what you've just brought up with that the language that we use, the understanding of both sides, and then that buy-in from both sides as well. And that's where it comes from, isn't it? That we have to have these conversations and create these environments for both sides to understand and then work together.
Yeah, I think every single person listening to this, if you've ever worked with a player, how many times have you said to a player, listen, we're going to do this, whether it's as part of rehab, whether it's as part of, let's say, a top up, a training session, the player doesn't want to do it. You might not want to do it, but if the manager, or for whatever reason, that is part of that training day or that working week. So how would you get the buy-in? Well, okay, I'm going to give you option one, and option one is we're going to do something isolated and it's not going to be relevant to what you do on a match day. Or option two, I've spoke to the coaching staff, I've got an understanding of the demands of what you do on a match day. So I'm going to actually make you feel important here. I'm going to, design something and provide you with an activity that is linked to your position, is linked to what you've done maybe the previous game or the upcoming match against whoever we're playing and the tactical demands of that, and really just try and get you to be the best you can be for what you have to do in a match day. I think it's an easy sell. And right away the player gives you that buy-in, you start to build that relationship, and the next time you ask them, hopefully, fingers crossed, they'll, yeah, no problem, we'll do that because I enjoyed it the last time. Or I've had situations myself in the past where the players went, well, you know what? Actually, I'm not too sure about that type of run. I think I might maybe curve my run more. I would maybe go inside to outside, whatever it may be. And you go, brilliant. Let's adapt it. Let's change it. Let's, if that's what you think you want to work on, as long as I'm getting this physical response or stimulus that we feel you need, great. And it's not just the coaching staff, it's a player buy-in that you have as well. And those relationships become more and more important as the season progresses.
I think that's a big skill, isn't it? To speak the language of the player, to speak the language of a head coach, a technical coach. And that's where this collaboration has to come from, that real understanding. And do you see that have you seen coaches, and obviously you don't have to pick people out and name names, but have you seen people that have got that understanding that don't have that side of things and really struggle to get the message across because of that?
You mean from a fitness coach point of view, Ben?
Yeah, they're in a position, they understand what they're trying to get across, but because they're not able to use that language, they've not got that relationship, it's a real struggle to get the message across.
Yeah, I think particularly for those new practitioners in the game, for those that are coming in and, they've maybe just finishing off university or just kind of maybe a year's experience and they've got all of this academic knowledge, which, listen, we all know we have to have that base, we have to have an understanding, but what you learn in the textbook isn't always applicable to what you deliver on the pitch, because you could be working with a player that's going through a divorce. You could be working with a player that is in the middle of a contract negotiation, or maybe is going to retire at the end of the season, or has fell out with another player, manager, whoever it may be. So that human element becomes important. But it's almost like speaking a foreign language. If we talk about um, anaerobic training systems and VO2 max and power output and numbers, and you say to a player, you've done 100 meters sprinting. What does a player take from that? What's their thought? Do they know that a sprint is above 7 meters a second? Probably not. Let's be honest. So it's trying to speak in a language that they'll understand, and I do really think it's a key skill. And I've mentioned about the young practitioners, but it's something when we deliver the courses, and I know we'll talk about it a little bit later, but I think that's the bit where candidates really do feel the biggest improvement because it is being able to have that shared knowledge and that linkage to the coaching staff that they're working with. And I think we get frustrated at times. We talk about sprinting, and I'll just keep using that as an example. But then we hear a member of coaching staff, oh, he sprinted to the ball there. Well, he's moved 5 meters. It's not a sprint, it's an acceleration. But you know, that's not through ignorance, that's just terminology. So we need to get better at explaining our terminology to coaching staff. And then likewise, we need to try and have a better understanding of, okay, what do they see as a sprint? Or, why are they seeing that as a sprint within a press or whatever it may be? So I do think there's probably a bit of work on both sides, but the more we can do, the more we can embed ourselves, then the better it will be for a long-term role of the fitness coach, whatever level people are working at.
And let's get into that now in terms of who the courses are for. We've referenced there about the young coaches, but there's also obviously coaches that have been in the game a number of years. Who they suitable for? Who they sort of targeted at?
So I'll quickly fill in a little blank. So as I mentioned, that kind of event in Israel there we went to, following on from that, the Scottish FA were one of 5 national associations that launched a pilot course for the UEFA B fitness license. Now, our first UEFA B fitness license we launched started in January 2024. Within that, we had a whole raft of practitioners. We had some from the Scottish game. We had some that were working in Europe. So we had a couple of coaches that were working in Ligue 1 in France. We had one from Portugal. We also had a few coaches from England. I think at that point it was English Championship, English League One. Subsequently, we've had quite a few staff from the English Premier League. We've had people from the MLS. We've had both the male game, women's game, the youth game. We've actually even had a current female international player that came onto the course. She held a sports science degree, but she felt that when she was coming to the end of her career, she was going to want to progress into that role. So she wanted to kind of give herself a head start. So, long story short, I would say the courses are aimed at anybody because I feel that anybody that comes onto the course will gain some useful information. Now, the courses aren't designed in terms of an academic course where we are going to teach you energy systems or muscle fiber construction. That's not what these courses are aimed at. These courses from UEFA are very much termed coaching courses, and they're about those softer skills. They're about how do you get messages across on the pitch and how do we collaborate with other members of staff. And it's quite interesting because as a tutor, and it's not just myself, we've also got Seamus McCafferty and Dr. Michael King. The three of us are the tutors for the Scottish FA, but it's brilliant for us because sometimes we'll have a debate or we'll have a conversation with the candidates, and you've got somebody with experience from Scottish Premier League and they're talking to somebody that works in the French League and the cultures or the differences, but then we've got somebody that is maybe working in a female youth academy. So how do we then try and relate what's happening in that youth academy to what's happening at the top level of a team that are playing in European competition? Is it the same message? Is it different because it's young players? Is it different because it's male players or female players? I think we all have experiences, and you'll know this is episode 350 now, so you've probably had plenty of them, but it's learning from others on the course as well and getting those shared experiences. Sometimes as a tutor, I'm coming away going, and you probably do it on this podcast, that was great. We've had a 30-minute conversation about whatever it may be, recovery protocols or about kind of managing players during return to play, etc. But I've picked up more from that and from that person's experience than I have maybe from the last 6 months or from reading a particular article or whatever it is. So I do, and I'm not just saying it, it's not a sales pitch, Ben, but I do really feel that, going on these courses, it's as much learning from the peers on the course as it is the kind of applied areas that we cover as part of the syllabus provided by UEFA.
Can we dive into that content a little bit more? Because I know you mentioned there about the focus on the soft skills side. So can we dive in terms of what's involved a little bit more?
Yeah, of course. So there's UEFA B fitness license and UEFA A fitness license. So UEFA B fitness license is what we are currently delivering. We have ran 3 courses so far. We have just launched our 4th course, which will start in August. That is aimed at the sports scientist, fitness coach, whatever title that you want to give them. It is 120 hours that is required, mandated by UEFA. Obviously, some candidates will take more time going through assessments, assignments, etc. And then moving on from that is the UEFA A fitness license, which we are hopeful we are going to start delivering later this year. And that course is aimed at those that are maybe going to be a head of department or wishing to be a head of department. The demands for that obviously are a bit more, and that is 180 hours. Both courses follow a similar kind of outline, and this has came from the Fitness for Football Advisory Group. So the group I spoke about with Paul and Chris Barnes and Stacey, etc. But it's split into 4 pillars. So the first pillar is the fitness coach, and that is about the individual himself in terms of their philosophy, their maybe coaching methodology, what is good practice, just that kind of ethical, what type of practitioner are you? There's then also a pillar based on the player and the team. And within that, it's about how do we develop individual players, but also how do we develop that wider group of team development, and that links back to what I've said with regards to, does a manager play a 4-4-2 or 4-5-1? Is it a high press? Is it a low block, etc.? And a little bit on kind of player health and welfare and looking after those individuals, and what we need to make sure is done appropriate from that point of view. The third block is about the training environment. And this is one where I was very fortunate. We had a fantastic head of coach education here at the Scottish FA, Greg Patterson, who has just moved on in the last couple of weeks to pastures new over in the United States. But we worked very closely together in terms of that joined up approach between coaching and fitness and sports science, and his experience as a coach and what would he want and how do we try and blend that together. So some of the areas that we look at within that are session delivery, design and review, integrated and isolated training, fitness testing and monitoring, and what type of information do coaching staff want, and then also learning environment. And the learning environment is one that I'm pleased to say I've passed on. I've got an expert in that field. And I don't know if you've ever spoke to him or if you're aware of him, Ben, probably maybe at some point in the passing, but Steve Salas?
No.
No, no, okay. I'll encourage MD again if you have a spare minute. If you Google Steve Salas, he's had some journey in terms of football to education to back into football. And I'm going to call him a mindset coach. I don't want to offend Steve. I'm sure he might call himself something different, but really just encouraging practitioners to think about, how do you deliver? How do you speak to your players? How do you get the best out of them? Do we all have the same learning needs? Do we have different learning needs? And what's the best way to try and achieve those needs? So often when Steve comes on to speak on a course, it's one of the best sessions, because I've heard Steve speak now loads and loads of times, and every time I go away with a different thought, a different question, I go, why have I not picked up on that before? Why have I not, you know what? I should be better at that. I shouldn't do this. fascinating character. As I said, if you get a chance, listen to some of his work, or give him a Google. And then the last pillar is based on the match. So, what's the match environment like? How do we help players within that on a match day? Playing styles, what's the demands, and then also match and performance analysis as well. So, there's a lot of content in there. That's 14 modules that I've very quickly went over and kind of highlighted, but you know, we don't always stick to it. And I'm not going to make any excuses for that because, as I've mentioned, sometimes the conversations we have, similar to this podcast, you end up going down a certain road and the conversation becomes really interesting and people get really involved in it. And sometimes it's those opportunities are actually the best learning opportunities because they happen organically as opposed to a kind of pre-made script where, okay, we have to tick off box one or box two or whatever it might be.
No, that's really interesting. I know you mentioned there about the peer learning being a big part of these courses, which I think anyone that's been in any sort of seminar, workshop type environment, you see these real valuable conversations, don't you, when coaches are breaking out. But the 120 hours, 180 hours, is that all in person? Is there a remote side to that as well?
Yeah, so there's a mixture. There's some online-based learning where we'll go through maybe particular topics. Candidates will be asked, Ben, you're in a group of three. We're going to give you 20 minutes to go and design a session or come up with a presentation or feedback on this scenario. And then we also have blocks of in-person, and that's when the fitness coaches will deliver. There's a little bit of gym-based delivery. Just that's not the main aim. The main aim is about delivering on the pitch, but we have to be aware that as a fitness coach, there will be some delivery within a gym-based environment across probably the majority of cases. But when it comes to the in-person, we're keen to get coaches on the pitch as much as possible. And I think that's the bit that people find the most challenging because working with your own players or knowing that you're going to take a warm-up or you're going to take a top-up session or you're going to, do whatever it may be, you probably get into a little bit of a comfort zone. But we want to challenge people. And we've all been there before where managers, coaches, somebody will say, "Oh, Ben, can you take those players in 5 minutes? And can you do this? Can you?" And all right, what am I going to set up? And okay, that's great. We can put on an activity, but we want to go into the why. And it's something that I see on every course. Okay, you're asking that player to do speed endurance, but why? As a fullback, why does that player need speed endurance? How do you try and get across to him or her, well, the style of play that we're going to play this season, the formation, the opposition we're up against, this is why we need you to get forward. And then this is why we need you to get back. And then we need you to recover. And it's not just going to happen once, it's going to happen maybe 3, 4 times in the space of a 5 minute block or whatever the time frame might be. And then that's fine, you can do it. But can you also do it whilst delivering across the back post? Can you also do it whilst the way that fullbacks are playing now? Left back's going to deliver across. I actually want you to be coming in at the back post to try and create a goal scoring opportunity. But that's just not enough. You then have to get back in for the counter attack from a defensive side of things. And again, it's important to give these explanations to players so that they can buy into what we're doing and see the bigger picture of this isn't just pointless running for the sake of running, or the coach doesn't like me, the fitness coach doesn't like me, we're filling time, all these things we've heard in the past. There's a real purpose to what we're doing, and it's because of X, Y, Z.
I think there'll be some real interest, especially from the listeners, just in terms of hitting some of the topics that you've discussed there. One thing I feel the need to bring up, Graeme, because as we record this episode, the episode I'm going to reference isn't actually out yet. But I recorded an episode with Jordan Tyra, who's part of Football Fitness Federation, but he's recently been over to the Caribbean to deliver a C license to some coaches over there. And his question was around the C license and whether it would be available. So I wanted to put it to you because I know you mentioned that the courses are for everybody, but when we're going into the details, have you got in mind that coaches need to be at a certain level of experience or a certain level of qualification to come onto the course as well, if that makes sense?
Yeah, yeah, and listen, it's a great question. It's something that UEFA have had discussions with, and there's been a little bit of change within it. But to really go back to emphasize that point, is this is a coaching course. So candidates do have to have some level of coaching experience. Now, this will be the same. It doesn't matter if you were to do a UEFA fitness license in Scotland, and France and England and Germany. It will be the same as with the coaching qualifications, but the prerequisites to get onto the courses are for a UEFA B fitness license, you have to have a UEFA C coaching license. So that is a prerequisite, as well as a bachelor's degree level of sports science, physiology, human performance, whatever your degree may be in. There is a little bit of a transition period just now where the courses are being rolled out, and practitioners with certain levels of experience will be able to gain access to the courses without that coaching qualification. But that window will close as time progresses. So again, not a sales pitch, but I would encourage, if anybody is interested, if you don't hold that UEFA C license, then it may be in your interest to try and get on these courses sooner rather than later. Otherwise, you will have to do that C license coaching qualification. I know Stacey Emmons has just moved into a position with the English FA. So, we work very closely together, and there will be, Stacey's quite hopeful, courses ran by the English FA coming on board at some point in the future. But like I've said, that won't change whether you're a fitness coach in Scotland, England, Wales, Northern Ireland. These requirements will be the same across the board. And I know what people will be thinking. I'm a sports scientist, fitness coach, and I've done my degree, I've done my bases, I've done my UKSCA. Why do I need to do another qualification? We are probably the one industry in football that we've got more qualifications than we know what to do with. You've been there yourself. You do so many workshops, you do so many different uh, days here, or online courses or whatever, but this is something that is very much aiming down that coaching side of it, and what we mentioned at the start, that ability to connect with players on the grass, to connect with coaches when we're having these meetings in the morning about what does a session look like, what are we trying to get out of it, why do we want this, and I keep going back to that word why. Can we explain and can we justify in football language what we're trying to do? So I do agree. I do think that a coaching qualification or understanding is vitally important. And the reason that I say that is we're on the grass so much, we're working with players daily. So we need to have some form of understanding and ability to impart knowledge with these softer skills that we've discussed.
We talk all the time about impact as well, and this is where that's going to happen, isn't it? Because this is the work that really is going to transition to what happens on a Saturday or whenever game day is. So yeah, I think that's a really important point to make, that if you really wanted to have that impact within the role, this is a really key. These topics that you brought up, I know we've sort of gone through them pretty quickly, and there's going to be a lot more detail with them. But this is the real key areas, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that, again, that point there you've made, we have to have an impact for performance on a Saturday. I'm going to say a Saturday or Sunday. These days, games can be any day of the week, any time of the week. Clock
Yeah,
goes up at, was it 10 o'clock at night and all the rest of it. But if we can't get that message across on a Tuesday at 11 o'clock, how do we then expect players to perform on I'll say Saturday at 3 o'clock? So it becomes vitally important. And again, people listening to this can probably maybe think of a time in their own career, or maybe think of people they've worked with. And we can have all the knowledge in the world, but if we can't get that across to players, if we can't try and get the physical outputs and the understanding of what we're trying to coach or teach, it's not going to work. It's not going to happen. So I think that's where this is a good thing, where we are pushing fitness coaches more. We are encouraging them. It's maybe stepping out their comfort zone a little bit, because, maybe we're not comfortable taking, and that is part of what we do on the B fitness courses. Can you work with an individual player? Can you work with a small group? And can you actually work with a full team? Can you take a squad of players and design an integrated practice where you're going to challenge them from, whether it be aerobic endurance, agility, speed, whatever that theme may be. So it's something that, rather than worry about, or rather than how do I get better on the pitch, it's, I think, something that should be looked forward to, and trying to progress our skill set and trying to progress our maybe understanding of working with coaches, or our ability maybe to influence or to discuss things in a more meaningful manner from that football perspective.
I think with coaching identity as well, like if you don't want to be seen as the warm-up guy or girl, or the gym guy or girl, like this is the challenge, isn't it? To be more fully rounded, a fully rounded practitioner. And like you say, if that's stepping out the comfort zone, that's got to be a good thing, that you're going to come away with extra skills, extra skills to add to the toolbox to work with these players.
Of course, I think probably people will have worked with managers or staff where, exactly as you said, it's a warm up guy, warm up girl. You know, there's so much knowledge there, and it's getting that message across. It's trying to have those discussions. And if you're not in the room for those discussions, or if you can't get that message across, then it's lost. And ultimately, it might end up where training loads aren't right, increased risk of injury, players aren't conditioned for what the manager wants. And we're seeing the game develop so much now, with changes of formation, changes of tactics, styles of play, the demands on players playing matches every 3 days. I don't know how Chelsea, Man City, I don't know how these players are going to cope into next season. I could probably sit here and talk for hours regarding the challenges they'll have, but whether we like it or not, that is the way the game is heading, and that is where, particularly if you're at a club that doesn't have a large budget, you will be asked to input more, or you will be asked to provide more of opinion, or help to shape, if you progress onto a head of department, help to shape strategies, help to shape maybe kind of pathways, if it's academy into first team, obviously the growth in the women's game as well. There's practitioners there that are restructuring, or putting things in place to try and give the female players as much support as possible, and help to grow that area of the game. So the more knowledge and the better conversations we can have linked to the game, and linked to our own coaching abilities or confidence in that. And not everybody will be fantastic on the pitch. We accept that, but this is where we're trying to help and develop and progress those to be confident, and to really try and make a mark when they deliver.
Really interesting that we're nearly, as we record this, nearly mid-July, and their seasons are still going on, which is
Incredible. It's
yeah.
incredible that it carries on. And obviously we have a World Cup next season, and when a player's going to get breaks, I don't envy the fitness coaches at these clubs and the challenges that they're going to face.
Well, this is the importance, isn't it? You brought up the sort of importance of these conversations, and these are some of the relatively new challenges that are going to come up. This schedule, it's reality, isn't it? So we have to deal with it. We have to find ways of working. So just to take it back to the sort of importance of the peer and the network, like these are the challenges that you're going to have to face. We can't change that.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's quite interesting, because I have no idea how the game's going to unfold, but I'm just going to pick Chelsea just because of what we've discussed there. But you look at the size of squad they've got, there's going to be a lot of players that won't play. There'll be a lot of players that will be overloaded. So, how as fitness coaches do we work with both groups of players? how do we plan? How, do we take small groups? Do we work with individuals? Do we have to tailor programs? And it's something that is going to be a massive, massive challenge moving forward. And that's where, again, I'm really passionate. And I mentioned his name already, but Greg Patterson, who was the head of coach education, was passionate in this area as well. Because if you are working a football club, you work with players every day, and where the players, get most of their learning, it's on the pitch, it's
Hmm.
on the grass, it's with a ball at their feet. So we need to be comfortable delivering within that area as well.
100%. Graeme, have you got any specifics on the next course dates, when the next start dates are, things like that?
Yep, so we have got our UEFA B fitness course just now, which is advertised. If you go onto Scottish FA website, or if you look on, I'm going to call it Twitter, X, I should call it now, but if you look on any of these social media streams, you'll see information regarding it. The course is open for applicants. Obviously, we only have a set number of places, and we shortlist based on the requirements of that UEFA C coaching qualification, and also the bachelor degree level of knowledge. As I've said, there are some um, kind of dispensations depending on experience or playing career at the highest level. So again, I'd encourage anybody, if you are interested, to apply for it. We then shortlist, and the course begins on the 18th of August. It kind of operates in 4 blocks: August, September, October, and then kind of end of November into December. So the B license lasts about 6 months. We are hoping to launch our first UEFA A license round about October time. We're just kind of finalising discussions with UEFA regarding that, and that will be a much longer course, which will last about 12 months. But again, if anybody has questions, if anybody wants to get in touch, the email address would be coach ed, so ed, fitness at scottishfa.co.uk, if you want to do any of the courses with the Scottish FA. And like I said, I know other home nations, obviously Stacey with the English FA, counterparts in Northern Ireland, etc., Wales. I know that they'll probably be launching their courses at some point in the future as well.
And apologies if you have mentioned this, but where are the courses held?
So obviously there's some online content. When it comes to the in-person, it is held in Glasgow, at Hampden Stadium. So it's a national stadium for ourselves.
Perfect. Graeme, that's brilliant. Really good breakdown. Like I said, I think a lot of people, it'll spark interest in terms of the topics that you've talked about today, and obviously really key areas, when we're talking about impact and really making a difference with these players and understanding everything that is going on in the game right now, like we just mentioned about the schedule. So I think we brought up some really important points, which I know you guys will go into in much greater detail as well. So I really appreciate you coming on.
No, listen, really appreciate the opportunity, Ben, and it's been a long 5 years. Hopefully we'll speak again before the next 5 years. But as I've said, we're keen to raise awareness of these courses, and it may come further down the line that these are mandated by UEFA in terms of competitions, or mandated by national associations. So I would encourage people to certainly consider them, or have a think about them, both from a development point of view for their own development, and then also maybe for requirements that might be needed further down the line. But really appreciate your time. Great conversation as always, and hopefully people take something from it and can utilise that information to help them in their own careers.
Brilliant. Thank you, Graeme.
Perfect. Cheers, Ben.